Hello, great ones. Welcome to the Live and Be Great podcast. I'm your host, Latanya Sampson McDonald. I am a life coach and a registered marriage and family therapist associate. And this podcast was created to motivate, educate, and inspire all to live and be great. On today's episode, we're going to delve into a profound and such important topic, which is healing from trauma. And I would like to educate, of course, people on different types of trauma and how to start that process of healing. Okay? So, what is trauma? So, I would say let's look at the different types. Well, trauma, in layman's terms, is basically something that has effects on you that are negative. That's how I look at it. But there are 3 different types of trauma. And we have acute trauma, and that is the result of a single incident, like a car accident, or whatnot, or anything, right? Anything that was, and I can't say traumatic. I wish I had another word for traumatic when I'm trying to explain trauma, because so many people don't even realize that they have trauma, but it still affects them negatively, right? They don't know to call it trauma. You also have chronic trauma. That's the second type of trauma, and that is repeated, like abuse or domestic violence, like over and over and over, years of trauma. Complex trauma is like different types of trauma. Like, for instance, say there was a flood, right? And you lost your home. And then since then, attitudes in your household have changed, and it's like the trauma keeps packing on based off of no one around you doing what they need to do to deal with the trauma, or even recognizing it as trauma from the flood. So it could be a trickle down effect. So it's like a series of traumatic events. You could have gotten to a car accident, and then, okay, that was already traumatic, but you couldn't walk for, however many weeks. That was also traumatic. So you missed out on work or whatever the case may be. You may have been a performer, so I can't dance, and that's the only way I make money. So that's like, it's piling on, right? That is complex trauma. So back to the fact that so many people, let me move my mic closer. Back to the fact that so many people don't even realize that what they experience as trauma is still it's still very mind-boggling to me. I'm like, what do we learn in school? We should learn what trauma is in elementary school, I believe. And I think that we have psychology classes starting in high school. I'm not sure if everybody has that, but I did. But psychology was an elective, right? I believe it should be required class for you to take at a very, very, very young age. And I think it would be so helpful in teaching everyone emotional intelligence, self-care, and how to speak up, be vulnerable, and take care of themselves, like right after something happens. Just like you dress a wound, right? When you put a Band-Aid on something and you allow it to heal, I feel like your spiritual and mental should also have that same access. You should be taught that same access to do the same thing when you experience trauma. Okay? I know people that don't believe being hit as a child is traumatic. It is, right? You've been programmed to forget because a lot of the trauma that we experience in our household, we normalize it, especially if it's on a consistent basis, especially if you may be in an environment where, hey, the neighbor down door, my childhood friend, neighbor down door, his mama get beat on too, right? So, or his dad, right? So, or her, yeah. So, sorry about that, but I got a little tongue tied there, but I would say that normalized trauma may be the biggest, I would say, killer, mentally, physically, and emotionally, silent killer that we have in our world. Because when you don't recognize it as something that needs to be worked on, it gets worse. It gets passed down, right? So you have cycles and cycles of trauma that has been normalized, and when you're looking at it as this is just something that people do, it doesn't really help anybody, your family, and the generations that come after you, your friends, anyone that you feel as though I would say you'll feel as though everyone does that. And then you might get into a situation where you try to move out of your situation, or you want a new start on your life, or whatever the case may be. And you may not be able to connect with that new lifestyle, and find it hard to grasp based off of certain types of trauma. Okay, so it's important that we acknowledge these types, and even if, if there's something that I'm saying that you feel is normal, look it up. Right? The most random things, and you'll find that it's probably traumatic. Let's go into, I would say, if there was ever a time where you didn't have lights, or you didn't have running water, even though you may not take it as seriously, or you may have been told, oh, it's okay, they're going to come back on, whatever. That, depending on the circumstances or the after effects after that, like maybe not being able to do your homework, or not being able, all the food in your fridge going spoiled, whatever the case may be, it's still traumatic because there are thoughts there surrounding that. There are people that may say, okay, I'm going to work this particular job. Regardless, I'm not passionate about it, but I never want my lights to get turned off again. I hate this job, but because I don't want my lights to ever get turned off, and I don't ever want my family to go through that, and I don't want to go through that, I'm going to stay at this job, even though it's killing me. Even though they can replace me tomorrow, and I've gotten gout, I've gotten all the things that are telling my body and my mental, that in my spiritual, that it doesn't feel good. But because I haven't worked through that trauma and what it meant for me to have my lights cut off and what happened during that situation, I'm going to stay at this job. Right? Like, that's how bad it can get for people when you normalize certain things. Money trauma. I think the world also thrives off of certain trauma, when it comes to money trauma, there are people that may have money, right? And miss out on certain things because they're afraid to spend it because they knew what it felt like to be without, right? The things that they couldn't get. So it could get so bad with that money trauma that they're not even paying for the things that are necessities, right? They could have teenagers, and teenagers eat way more than everybody else. Kids are teenagers now because they don't want to spend more money on getting more food, okay? Now, your teenager who is about to be an adult doesn't have what they need to have a balanced diet, which affects everything, their spiritual, their mental, their physical, right? So money trauma is, whoo, that is a big one. And honestly, capitalism thrives on your insecurities, okay? On the trauma, on the things that you aren't recognizing as trauma. You're always in a space of believing that you need something when you don't, right? Hoarders, people that have a lot of clutter in their home. I, for one, have a pen addiction. I'll be upfront and honest that I need to work on. But the world wouldn't be what it is. Certain people will go out of business if you weren't in this constant state of need. Advertising, marketing, right? But these things wouldn't work if you had better self-awareness, or I would say understanding of traumas and how those traumas affect your perception of life based off of things that you need, things that you don't need, things that you are willing to sacrifice that shouldn't be sacrificed and don't work well in the long run. All of it. Trauma. Okay? So, I hope you have a great understanding about that. But, of course, my episodes, you hear me talk about different types of trauma all the time. So, definitely look up anything that has shaped your mind, be it I don't like strawberries no more, or I don't like to use public bathrooms, right? There could be some trauma there. I don't like to go out on dates. I'd rather just talk on the phone, and then if I like you, I'll go on a date. Or I need to FaceTime you before, if I meet you online, I need to FaceTime you before we go on a date. Now, you should do that. Now, you should do that regardless. But it still can be trauma that affects you along the way. So, let's move on to cultivating a supportive environment. Okay, that's a big one, because if everyone isn't on the type of time that you are on, it will affect you. It will deter your healing. Healing from trauma, no matter what type it is, does require a strong support system. It is so important that you surround yourself with caring and understanding people, regardless of if they're family or not, because sometimes you may have to be on black sheep mode and leave if no one around you is willing to step up to the plate and change. I would say that should be your goal when you start your healing journey. If you're living in a toxic environment, it should be to leave get the courage to leave, or work through the trauma that you have around leaving, right? Because you're gonna soar once you come off the battlefield. You are, and I am an example of that. The reason why I became a therapist is because I wanted to heal my family. And I moved from Georgia and I went all the way to California. Okay? And if I did have family, there were like distant cousins there that didn't even like live an hour away or more. So I didn't really have them to lean on. But this, I don't know. I'm not saying that you guys have to go become therapists, right? But when I started my program for therapy, I wanted to make sure that I was experiencing all of the things because I did not want to be a charlatan. I did not want to be an imposter. I wanted to make sure that the things that I'm asking other people to do, which is to be vulnerable and tell me everything, I want to be able to go through that too, to face it and to do the work to heal from it. Right? And healing, it's an ongoing process, because certain things may come up that once you tackled one thing, certain things may come up that you didn't realize were an issue. And we're ever evolving, we're ever changing. And no, trauma is not something that you can avoid in this lifetime because we have to deal with other people in this lifetime, regardless of whether you're king or queen, president, pope, whoever. Trauma is not something you avoid. Even vicarious trauma is a thing. Vicarious trauma is you not being the one that experienced it, but just by hearing about it or seeing it, or reading about it, or it's coming over the news, it can be traumatic. I know many households that did not watch, especially African American households, didn't watch the news because they felt as though it was traumatic for them. They felt like they were being targeted, which is accurate. The media plays a big role in how we treat other people. But they didn't watch the news. And I developed that trait. I want to know. I don't want to see nothing because, I'd rather be ill-informed because it's just negative, right? That shaped my perception from seeing it myself and like, this doesn't feel good, So, vicarious trauma, just by seeing something. You may have not been the one that got kidnapped, but watching, maybe for me, watching so many, black people or black children go missing for so long, and really any human, but like how we didn't really get publicity back then. We didn't even really get on the Amber Alerts as much either. That was, I'm in an underserved community when it comes to certain things that happen that are traumatic that we see on the news. So you can't avoid it no matter what. You cannot avoid trauma. But back to what I was saying, cultivating a supportive environment, you may have to go. Like, I'm happy I got off the battlefield and I was able to look back and see certain things that my family may have not noticed. I didn't notice that I had certain traumas. I remember having a conversation within my first year with my mom and, telling her that I understood that why she was so angry when she came home from work. because of what was going on. And the thing is, I didn't even find out the full truth till last year of what was going on. But I knew, what I did know was there were marital issues, there was work issues, and her own, self was going through other things. And it was traumatic for me. But that started the process of me discovering more and more things. You even are able to discover, like, what do I need to return back to my family? Because that's usually where all trauma starts, is your home. That's your first representation of the world out there, is your family. Of what you're going to experience out there in the world is your family, or I should say, what you base your perceptions of how the world is and relationships comes from your home base. Regardless, even if you don't have a family and you've been in foster care, whatever you experience the most when you're done with your day's work or you're done with school, it affects you. So I want to tell y'all, listen, stop trying to pour from the empty cup. You cannot bring everybody with you. Yes, it's going to hurt, but you will feel freer if you surround yourself with a network of positive friends, positive family, and professionals who can give you unconditional guidance and support during your journey. Okay? They respect it. They understand it. They give you grace. But you must give yourself grace first. And then everybody will fall in line. And some people, I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. It is harder, right? But some people don't have what they need to leave their environment. But it's way more difficult for them to develop their boundaries. They do it now, but depending on your situation, it's not easy, and you can easily relapse based on staying in that environment, especially if somebody there has that upper hand. Like if your parents are toxic, or one of your parents are toxic, and you move back home, or a sibling is toxic and you move back home, and say you're paying them rent or not paying them rent, right? You may feel as though they have a certain power over you, so you may stand up for yourself at one point, but then when they, of course, they're not gonna like that. Most people don't like when you change on them. When you start to stand up for yourself, because usually the first person you do it with is somebody that you care about. Okay, but you may feel as though, let me just play it cool because I'm not paying them no rent, or they could kick me out, or whatever the case may be. Me, I'm dangerous like that, so I'll be like, whatever. You're going to respect my boundaries, or I'm not going to be around you. I'm going to find a way out. I've been like that. I want to say since I've gotten out of college, my undergrad, when I was like 22, 23, I developed that type of mentality. Actually, in college, I did. I remember I dropped a whole group of friends because they all decided to do something dumb. And I was like, I ain't fooling with none of that. So I ain't finna talk to none of y'all. I'm finna find some new friends. This is my freshman year. So I think I've always been that way. But I want to say the hardest people to do it with is the people that you actually love, like your family. It is difficult, but sometimes, you guys, it is so necessary, and it does make the process, it is easier than staying there and trying to start your healing journey. Not saying it can't be done, but it is easier than that. But it's still not a cakewalk. But the benefits of it, the benefits of making sure you have a positive environment, is well worth it. So there are different types of therapy. that I would say it plays a pivotal role when it comes to your healing, because you have someone there that you're not worried about judgment, even though some people they can't help it. We're creatures of, trying to make sure we're understood and we're validated and somebody sees us, but this person doesn't have a bias. Usually, they're not supposed to. I would say that. Um, but this is someone that can give you their undivided attention and really, really be a safe space for you to process your thoughts around trauma. Okay, when it comes to your healing journey, you have cognitive behavioral therapy, and that really deals with your thoughts around the trauma and reframing what that meant for you and taking out the unhealthy, right? Thoughts and cognitions, they call it, in order to change the behavior you have surrounding the trauma. And then you have EMDR, and that is, I definitely want you all to look that up, EMDR, and that's listed as the most effective when it comes to trauma. But basically what it does is it kind of exposes you to a different way of seeing the trauma. That's what the end of the process is. I don't want to go too much into the terminology for those who aren't therapists when it comes to EMDR. And then you have mindfulness therapy. Okay, mindfulness-based therapy. And this deals with coping skills. Well, all of them have coping skills, but mindfulness is really something that you could possibly start at home. But if you need someone to, if your therapist deals with trauma, if you're going there to work on your trauma, they are usually skilled in teaching you like how to be self-aware, how to meditate, how to practice self-care, and things of that nature. Your thoughts about yourself after the trauma, right? So really all of those approaches help facilitate the healing process and are imperative. Like we talked about early, how you perceived your trauma, whether you normalized it or not, it does affect how you move in the world, what you think about people, certain types of situations, things of that nature. So they are very, 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 very helpful overall in the overall like psyche of healing, and starting that journey, and like basically you being a survivor instead of allowing the situation to continue to take from you spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. All right. Some of the mind, body, and healing techniques that you can try, you can do yoga. Okay. You can do meditation, breath work, physical exercise. You can dance. All of those things help to reduce stress and calm your nervous system, as well as it fosters a sense of grounding and balance, right? Yoga, that's the body right there, okay? Stretching the body, being focused on how that trauma, yoga and any type of exercise really, when you include some type of movement, it does help build a better barrier against the traumatic experiences of the trauma, right? For instance, I constantly have to be reminded to relax my shoulders because of my trauma, my anxiety. My shoulders are always raised based on, I'm ready to go. It's still something I have to work on, and something that I didn't realize until I was in my, 30s, that that's something that I do. I used to hear people say, relax your shoulders, and I'm like, what? Talking about? But there are certain things that, because the body does keep score when it comes to, there's a book called The Body Keeps the Score that talks about how trauma affects your overall, your brain, your body, and everything, how you move. So yoga, any type of exercise, can help break that cycle or break that connection that the trauma has when it comes to your body. And I don't know, for you guys, if you've never stretched before, like when you wake up in the morning, raise your arms up. Even that feels good. If you can remember to do that instead of just jolting out of bed because your alarm went off, but taking a moment to just stretch your arms up, you can see a even small benefit in your mood throughout the day, right? Meditation. I talked about this before in a previous episode, but because I have ADHD, I have to have guided meditation. And even though my mind wanders a lot, I am able to always bring it back to the voice that I'm hearing. And meditation, I know people get scared, like, oh, I don't know how to do it, and it doesn't require all of that. There's certain different forms of meditation. You can even meditate with your eyes open, watching drone footage of water or islands and things of that nature. Like, even that is a form of meditation. Listening to white noise is a form of meditation. Sitting in silence and just listening to the world around you is a form of meditation, regardless of whether your mind wanders. And your mind wandering, don't beat up on yourself when it comes to meditation, because that is just your mind doing what it's supposed to do, which is to think. Okay? So I don't want people to be so afraid, but this also creates balance. It creates balance for me. When I can remember to do it. I usually meditate every day. And if I have a busy week, it might be difficult. But there are 2-minute meditations, 1-minute meditations on YouTube, guided meditations. You can do it. I just want you to keep track of your day if you just try it. We also have breath work, and there's so many different breathing exercises, okay? And I want to do one with you right now that's simple. I remember I was watching Jennifer Lewis, the actor, who was on Blackish, right? And many different things. And she's an Aquarius, by the way. Shout out to the Aquariuses out there. But she talked about how if you're having a bad day, instead of going off on people, your day started off wrong. Take 10 deep breaths anytime you can remember. Even if your day is going good, if you can remember to take those 10 deep breaths, by the time you get to number, I would say 5, you are already calm. And then you could think a tad bit clearer. It does work, right? So let's do one now. So we're gonna Take a deep breath in and hold for 4 counts, right? And then we're going to release for 8 counts. Let's try it. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out. 5, 6, 7, 8. Again, breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. One more time. Breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. After doing that, pay attention to how you feel. And be honest about it. Okay? Be honest. But when you take those 10 deep breaths, do it that way. Always make sure when you exhale, it's longer than your inhale. Like if you can't remember to count and, you feel like you got a panic attack coming on, or it's just your heart is racing and you feel like you're about to go off, try to remember to just breathe in, breathe out 10 times, and make sure that your exhale is longer than your inhale. Also, something that I like to do, I'll just throw that out there, that helps reduce stress is grounding techniques, which you'll learn, in therapy. You can look them up as well. But I like to take my shoes and socks off and go outside and put my feet in some grass. Love it. Okay, talk about grounding. Feel the ground, or even if you, don't feel like going outside, but pay attention to how your floor feels. Also, you can do a whole full body scan from head to toe. Pay attention to each part of your body and how it feels. Recognize it and keep going to get yourself centered and grounded. That is something you can start today when it comes to starting your healing journey. We talked a little bit about the role of, I would say, self-care, being influenced in mindfulness, but y'all, if something happened to you, it is not your fault, right? But you must be accountable for the healing. That's it. That is all. When you decide to heal from it, you are no longer a victim. You are now a survivor. You do need to be gentle with yourself. You do need to learn how to do that, especially if you're having these negative thoughts to where you don't speak up, you feel like no one cares, or you feel like everybody will, or a certain type of person will do this to you, or whatever the case may be, whatever your thoughts around surrounding your trauma. It is okay to say, hey, I was unsafe here and it hurts. And then work on your thoughts about yourself. Have self-compassion. Give yourself grace when it comes to any type of trauma that affected you. I don't care how big or small that you feel that it is. Embrace yourself. Give yourself self-compassion. Think about what you would say to someone else that you cared about that has these negative thoughts about it. Go there. If you have a hard time being gentle with yourself, think about what you would tell someone else that you cared about. and you saw how that trauma was affecting them, how would you tell them to take care of themselves? Hopefully it's not a just get over it. Because if you're one of those, we got a bigger problem. All right? And don't take that in if you have someone around you that would just tell you just to get over it. No. Right? You have a right to feel how you feel. And the only thing, like I said before, that you are accountable for is your healing. You can't just say, hey, this happened to me and do nothing about it, because you are walking a thin line of staying the victim and also now becoming the abuser. I tell everybody, when it comes to crimes, those who murder, kill, rape have been abused in some form or fashion. May not be the exact, but they experienced abuse. And based on that not healing, you either one of those people who, okay, I got PTSD, I get flashbacks, I'm just not going to go over here no more. Or I'm just going to try to block it out and pretend like it didn't happen. You could be one of those people, or you could be you could try to get your power back and be passing down the cycle, right? Or you can be like what you need to be and what you deserve to be. Someone who goes to seek help. Someone who really, really embraces who they are and wants to start the process of loving themselves in order to heal from that trauma. Mind, body, and soul. Something else that I really like to do is art. Okay? Art can be like whatever you can't articulate. That has been what dance has been for me. It will be any type of art, but whenever you can't articulate what you're feeling, or you may not be comfortable articulating, or you can't, get to that supportive system in a time where those feelings and those thoughts are coming up based off of the trauma, you can write, right? You can journal, you can paint, you can listen to music, you can dance, like creative expression. Oh, that is even healing. Like I've heard people say, hey, dancing or painting or music or whatever is a part of my therapy, right? That is perfectly fine to serve as an outlet when you can't talk to someone at the time, or you're still trying to process everything to be able to talk to someone, or this is just something that is a de-stressor of everyday minor traumas that you experience. Give yourself permission to do that, because it is so beneficial. So even if you're not good at it, do it. Right? If you like to sing and you're like, I can't stand how my voice sound, put them headphones in and go off. So you won't have to hear yourself. Or take a singing lesson. Do that. Like, try. Let it be something that you work at because you've always wanted to do, no matter what it is. The only one that can stand in your way of finding a creative outlet is you. Really, any part of what I'm talking about today when it comes to starting your healing from trauma journey. Only person that's going to stop that is you. There's so many different ways to start that process. And I still do want to stress the importance of reaching out, okay, to a professional. And when you reach out to a professional, the things that you need to pay attention to is it affecting my relationships? Is it affecting school? Is it affecting work? Is it affecting my overall body, like health. Okay? Those are key indicators that there's trauma there, and it's time to see somebody. Okay? However you can, it's time to seek professional help that, you don't have to have the superhero cape on for yourself then. Okay? This is basically superhero training. I would say when you start your healing process, you can make sure that your cup is full before you help anybody out in this world, no matter who it is. But seeking professional help, it does take courage, because this is a stranger that doesn't know you. So I applaud all my clients. I applaud anybody that wants to start the process of working on themselves, because when you feel like you're in a space where you feel like something isn't right, but you don't have the words to say, or you don't feel comfortable saying what it is, or you don't quite understand what is going on for you, you just know you don't like it, therapists help you do that. Think of a ball of yarn in your head of thoughts, and what we do is we detangle, okay? We untangle that tangled ball of yarn. Those knots that y'all get when it's string or, a cord. We help do that and help you process your emotions so that you can develop ways to continue to cope and ways to overcome your trauma, right? It's important that you seek professional help, right? And not because you just need it, it's because you deserve it, especially for those who experience childhood trauma, taken advantage of, whatever the case may be. Really, every human being deserves a space to heal. It does, because you are going to be surrounded, you get the conflict being surrounded by everyday humans that won't heal. So that makes it continuous, and I'm like, you don't want to be one of those, right? Like for the grandmother who is watching her daughter go off on her grandbaby. Why are you going off on my grandbaby like that? Oh, what you mean? Like, you used to talk to me like this all the time. Worse, right? If you don't want to be looking like that, if you don't want to repeat certain cycles, there's trauma there, and it's important to see somebody outside of the family who is used to dealing with that, who has expertise in that, who has worked on their own, right? That can help you. Okay? So I hope this episode was very informative, and I hope you feel inspired and empowered to embrace all of these healing strategies, or any healing strategy that I mentioned that resonates with you. Okay? Healing from trauma is a personal journey, and there is no one size fits all approach, right? Certain things may not work, and if your therapist suggests something you tried, it doesn't work, our job is to find something that does, right? All we need you to do is to make sure that you try and that you commit to yourself. Be patient with yourself and understand that you're not alone, and you don't have to go through any of this alone. If you implement these strategies that I talked about today, you can embrace resilience and move forward with a newfound strength and courage. All right? So I want to thank everybody for listening today, and I hope I hope that this was helpful. All right, so be kind to yourself, love on yourself, and give yourself permission to live and be great. The Live and Be Great podcast will be airing every other Friday. If you have truly enjoyed this podcast, thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for giving Live and Be Great a chance. Please feel free to share, like, give a review, subscribe on whichever platform that you're listening to right now, on iTunes or Apple Podcast, Spotify, Anchor, as well as Google Play. The Live and Be Great podcast is strictly crowdfunded, so if you are interested in becoming a supporter, you can click the link in the description, or you can go to liveandbegreat.com and scroll to the bottom and donate to the Live and Be Great podcast today, so I can continue to give you good and motivational content. Thank you all for listening, and don't forget to give yourself permission to live and be great.